It was homework time and you're at the kitchen counter doing homework and you're diligently, like always, doing your homework. And TJ, of course, he wants to go play. He doesn't want to do homework, you know, and I'm like, TJ, you've got to go do homework. And he's like, I don't have to do homework. I don't have to do homework. I want to be Superman. I don't want to go to school. I want to be Superman. And you just got off the counter very quietly, very calmly. And you went to him, you say, TJ, Superman has to know about geography. And Superman has to know math because he needs to know how many times to go around the world to get to the people he's going to rescue. Superman has to go to school. He needs to know these things. And so I was stunned. I didn't know what to say because you shamed me, right? You took the high road. You showed him how and why he needed to do his homework because we need a smart Superman.
I'm so excited to bring you today's episode, but before we do, I need to make sure you've heard about Member Up. So community-driven products are the future, but Facebook groups are a thing of the past. And after 10 plus years in the online education space, I've taken all my learnings and I've built this incredible platform, Member Up. It's a customizable, easy to use, all-in-one platform where you can build a premium course, community, or membership site without the tech headache. Gone are the days of having to duct tape together your content, your community, your payments, all on different platforms. I want you to do me a favor, do yourself a favor, and head over right now to memberup.com/Danielle. And you can get started for free today. I promise you, I can't wait for you to see this platform. It's beautiful. Okay, the design is amazing. Your community is going to feel at home here, and you are going to take pride in your online business. It is the place to start. Head over to memberup.com/Danielle. Now let's get into the episode. I thought it would be really cool to have you on. I mean, you are my best friend. You've been my best friend from the time I came out the womb. I think of you as my first thought partner. When I think about my life and everything I've created, I'm like, I feel like I've just had the right people in close proximity, and I've always had a great thought partner. And you were my OG thought partner. I did a truth session with my friend Lalita, and it's a 2-hour session, and her goal is to ask you a series of questions, and at the very end of it, to reintroduce yourself to yourself. At the end, I remember I did my truth session, and it was like a 2-hour session, and I was really hungover from the night before, so it was great. I was just like speaking like truthfully from the hip, and she asks you everything about how you feel, who you are. And by the very end, she summarized and she pretends like she is introducing you and bringing you on stage somewhere. And for me, she was bringing me onto the TED stage. And so she says, welcome to the stage, Danielle Leslie, the author of I See You and You Belong. And that was the title she gave like my, fictitious future book. And then I gifted this same truth session to you. So you did the truth session with Lalita.
Yes.
And in your truth session, because you've always had aspirations to write a book, she gave you a title for your book. Do you remember what the title of your book was?
Oh my goodness.
You don't remember?
The same?
It was same vibe. Same vibe.
Yes.
So this was around the time that Michelle Obama's Becoming book came out. And so yours was called Belonging.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
And so I remember you told me that, and you said, I just did a session with Lalita, and she said, my book is gonna be called Belonging. And I was like, that's interesting. So I shared this with Rosemary, my spiritual advisor, and I said, and we were having a session, and it's actually before I shared this. And I was just telling her, Rosemary, I feel so alone. I feel so lonely. I don't have any friends. I don't belong. I never have. And she's like, wait a minute. You just visited Crystal in LA. You talked to Tara earlier. You're doing all these things. Where are you getting this from that you don't belong? And I thought about it. And she's like, is there anyone in your life who has thought they don't belong? And I realized, oh my goodness, that is something that I feel like, identify with. And I thought about our truth session. And I shared it with Rosemary, and she said, wait a minute. So your mom's book was Belonging, and your title was I See You, You Belong. She said, do you realize that your book is an answer to your mom? It is telling her, I see you, you belong.
Yes.
And for all of my life, I felt I didn't belong. I didn't realize I had carried your,
Yes.
you know,
I
as
know,
my
isn't, and I felt so
own.
bad. That's right. And I did tell, I felt so bad about that because it's true. I mean, even being born in a foreign country in Panama and having my friends there, and you know, we were split between, you know, the American community and the Panamanian community, and it's like, where do I belong? So thankfully, they did invent a term for people like me there, which was Zonian, and then coming to the States, it was the same thing. So I think I've carried that throughout my entire life, and I think I'm still, to a certain degree, I'm still struggling with that. But I think I've resolved to just I'm looking at it as a plus, because when you, to me, when this so-called belonging, and when you pigeonhole yourself into these cliques, you know, so on and so forth. It's almost like you're obligated to stay in them. Whereas if we flit around like butterflies and whatnot in different areas, different when you're traveling from LA to, you know, all over the world, Spain, whatever, you know, we're making more and more connections. Whereas when we're belonging in these small groups of whatever it is, whether it's a sorority or a certain network or whatever, we're kind of like feel obligated to this group. Whereas to me, you're spreading your wings and you're just, so I'm looking at it now differently. And I'm looking at it as a plus.
Yes.
You know, and it's just like when you moved around from school to school when you were little, because we did move, and you would say, but we're moving again. And I would say to you, well, that's how you're going to make more friends. As you're moving to these different places, you're making new friends each place you go, and so your Rolodex is just building up.
I love that. I was gonna say that what I've learned is it's so interesting how I would say, quote unquote, you know, feeling lack of belonging, or, you know, I also saw it as you never putting yourself, as you said, in a box. And it's interesting that my entire business is built around being a culture ad and using your cultural advantage and honing in on what makes you different, as opposed to thinking about what makes you the same and what makes you, quote unquote, belong. And I always say that I created Course from Scratch and created this community for the people who were the first, you know, the first to do things, who didn't feel like they had a community or had anyone around them with the same label. And so it's so interesting that it's almost like your legacy has you know, been brought to life through me and like my mission, and it's a big core part of my mission. And I would say it was my biggest strength, you know, was never really, I used to identify myself as, you know, nice and like smart and successful, right? Like I didn't even think about race, gender, age, any of those things until much later. And I thank you for that. You know, you always like really, do you remember what you used to pray for me and Giselle at night?
Oh, geez.
There was one thing you prayed that we would have always.
Well, compassion.
Yes.
Yes. And I still to this day, that you would always have compassion, and yes, that's just very important, and that you share yourself, meaning any good parts about you, that you share those among those around you and your community, etc. Yeah.
And I would say one thing that really stands out is how you always had, I think, a top value of honesty and transparency. And just from when I was little, you encouraged me to just like tell the truth.
Yeah.
You know, see how that's influenced me. You have the sign, the Tell the Truth sign right there. I even have
Which
the
should
tattoo.
be on. Maybe
it will
should
be.
be.
We're gonna do a Tell the Truth session. But I think you really like impacted me, and you created a safe space for me to just say whatever. Yeah. So I've told you things, even TMI. I've told you about, you know,
yes,
the psychedelics,
we talk
the 3
about
sums, the 4 sums, you know.
Yes, we talk about everything.
But I love that you gave me like the safe space to do that, and I never felt judgment from you. You always were like, okay, interesting. And so one thing I love about you is this like inquisitive nature. Where do you think that came from?
Oh my goodness. I think, to be honest, the inquisitiveness came from being a middle child and not having anyone to interact with. So I was left to my own devices and my own, you know, inventions and however I entertain myself, my own entertainment, right? And so just one thing, I was curious about everything. just about everything, whether it was living beings or, the swamps around me or the frogs in the street or the crabs or the rain or my chemistry set or whatever it was, people, or, how my parents entertained, everything. I was just, just inquisitive about, and one thing I loved doing was watching people and making up stories about, oh, what's that person thinking? Or what are they going to do next? Or, oh, they're doing that because so-and-so.
That is so true. And me and Giselle, we always talk mess about that. They're like, you were always making up narratives about the neighbors. Like when I was living with you in Redondo Beach, and you'd be like, yeah, so I think that is her husband, and he's like coming back from a long business trip, and I think like what he was doing on the business trip was making her upset. Like you would just make up these narratives. But I think what that trained me to do was to think about the why of someone's behavior instead of jumping to conclusions, like judging them, but actually knowing like, oh, there's a why. Like just knowing there's a reason for how they're showing up. And therefore, there's a reason for why I'm showing up this way or like I behaved in this way. I don't know. I think I learned from you to always know, like always think about the context. For why people act in a certain way, that there's some bigger reason that I may not know, and to not judge them for it, but to really like accept.
Yeah, we don't know what's going on with people, and I try, it's hard not to judge. And I thank you for praising me in that way, but I think, actually I think of Giselle, whenever I think the word judgment comes into my mind, I do think about Giselle because she's the one who would always, you're being judgmental, and I think one day I finally said, what do you mean by judgment? What is being judgmental? What is it?
Okay, break it down. What is being judgmental?
Break it down. What does it mean?
So what does it mean to you?
Well, I guess in my mind right then, I was not being judgmental because a judgmental person to me would be, well, you're no good because you're stealing or because you're doing hardcore drugs. So, I had to rethink, what is that? What is this word judgmental? Even Steve would tell me, oh, you're no saint, you judge people. And so many times before I would form opinions, and because I would retort by saying, I'm just opinionated, that's all. And then, well, what do you think judgmental is? And anyway, it's yeah, so it's something I'm coming to terms with, that I am to a certain degree, but I allow people as long as they're not walking off the cliff where I have to grab them, then I feel that yes, allow people to be who they are, as long as they're not walking off the cliff. So I'm not perfect in that regard. I do think about it, I do contemplate it, and I weigh everything. Before I say something negative or judgmental. Yeah.
One of the things I really love about you is how you allowed me to be myself and to pursue whatever I found interesting. You didn't have a prescribed list of things that you wanted me to be or aspire to.
I know, right? I didn't really live vicariously through you, but I sort of did actually, and because, but I mean, you came blazing into this world. That's how you came, meaning that you like get everybody out of my way. You had your checklist coming into this world. I'm going to do this, that, the other, because everything as a toddler, as a baby, you did so early, right? Because it's like, I've got things to do. I've got places to go. And you learn to walk early, talk early, the experiences early.
So how old was I when I learned to walk and
talk? Oh my gosh. Well, you were, I would say you were less than, you weren't even a year old yet when you started saying whether it was your ABCs and you're counting from 1 to 10, and your memory skills were pretty strong, obviously, because that's the way you would have learned them. Even the experiences when your dad had a habit of eating these Ritz crackers and cheese together, and you would just crawl up and want some of that, and he would give you offer a cracker, and you wanted both. You would want the cheese in one hand, the cracker, and this is less than a year old, you would put them together like this because you wanted the experience, what he was having. You wanted the experience he was having, right? So at 2.5, I don't know what possessed me to ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? At 2.5, I mean, who knows? I showed you a book with all these professions. It was a children's book. And you said, well, you want to be a doctor that takes care of the mommy when she's having the baby. I said, oh, well, that's an obstetrician. And so that seed was in my brain. And so when you got to high school, you know, and you got into the Health Careers Academy in high school, and you were doing all of that. Then it was something else, and you were interested in arguments. They had the mock trials, and so you tried that out, right? Debating and so on, and you loved that too. And I mean, and you were on the basketball team. You did well with that. You were, tennis. You played tennis, and so just everything you set out to do, you were, you just really good. But it's the indication you gave me, right? When you showed me you had an interest, in dancing even, and then I exposed you to those things, and you would then decide, do you like it, do you not? Piano lessons. I know that was one of the times when I felt I had to hold myself back, because you were exposed to piano lessons, you were taking it and so on. You started out with having a sort of a group session, and then I wanted you to have more of a private tutoring, and so we started going to the
Miss
private.
Barbara.
Yes, Miss Barbara, right? And what I found was that you thrived more in the group session. I think it was more of a competition for you, and you were the best student there. And I thought, well, if she's the best student in a group setting, she could be even better if we gave her private sessions. And here, so we had the private sessions, and then you finally one day said, no, I don't want to do this anymore, because, Miss Barbara kept, advancing me, and you felt that you weren't perfecting each piece each week, and yet she was advancing you. So you kind of took yourself out of it, and you didn't want to do it anymore, and I was so disappointed in that particular. I never said anything, and I think to this day I'll kind of remind you, you play the piano.
For 2 years. But yeah, I do remember that with piano, in that instance, the expectation is for you to practice.
Yes.
Like almost every day.
Yeah,
At
every
least,
day.
Put some effort into it.
Some hours every day.
And I remember it would be like 7 p.m. on Tuesdays that we would go to Miss Barbara, and I would practice at 5 p.m. from 5 to 6 until we had to leave at 6. And I just remember knowing that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do, and I said, and that's where I felt like it was incongruent. It wasn't integrous. Is that the word, integrous? Like not in integrity? Is that a word, or did I make that up?
I don't know it. I'm not going to lie. I don't know integrous.
But I didn't feel an integrity. Yeah, because I knew that I was playing once a week for an hour, maybe 30 minutes.
And that's good. And I realized about you. And I said, I should be applauding her than being a little bit disappointed about it, because she knows what she isn't doing, and what it takes to be a good pianist. In a sense, I was applauding you, but I was a little bit, hoping that you would go on with it and give it more of a try. But you knew what you wanted to do and what you liked. And like I said, you came blazing into this world. You knew what you wanted to do, and you didn't have time for this, and you would go on to the next. And I think that's what you continue to do.
Hey, this is Danielle Leslie, and I have a question for you. If you are a creative entrepreneur and your business is unique, why are you working with a generic accountant? One of the best decisions I made was who I would partner with on my taxes and my accounting. So if you're a creative entrepreneur, you are growing your business, you're scaling your business, I want to introduce you to Revel. Revel is a firm that can help you whether you're looking to prepare your taxes or you're looking for that year-round support. They will tell you what's happening in your business and why. So if you're tired of being ignored, talked down to, or feeling like you are chasing around your accountant and needing to drive the relationship yourself, it's time for a change. Head over to revelcpa.com, REVELCPA.com. Head on over, fill out their interest form, and make sure you look into working with them. Again, that is revelcpa.com, REVELCPA.com. We all deserve the right firm to partner with. It's been proven that procrastination can be one of our biggest enemies to success. Now, contrary to belief, procrastination is not based on a lack of time management or organizational skills. Procrastination is directly linked to our emotions. Now, the reason I know this is because of Patty Johnston. Patty Johnston is incredible. She's a Course from Scratch member, but even more importantly, she's built multiple multi-million-dollar businesses once she learned how to overcome procrastination. So she's created a program where she shares her system on how to overcome procrastination, and it's based on emotional intelligence, neuroscience, and accountability. She's gonna show you step-by-step how to overcome negative feelings so you can start taking action and start seeing a difference from day one. So text this number right now to schedule an appointment with Patty and her team to see if this is right for you and what steps for you to take to overcome your procrastination. 813-789-1097. And again, the number to text right now is 813-789-1097. Let's all overcome procrastination together. Now let's get back to the episode.
One thing I'll say is what I picked up from you is you've always been very ambitious. You've always focused on, I remember coming home with the report card and I would have the like all A's and like the B plus. And then dad would be like, golden child. And he would be like, you know, dancing around the kitchen, like, yes. And then you'd be like, oh, Danny, come here. What is this B plus in social studies? What happened here? And I told you this, you know, I so appreciate that I had both, you know, I had dad who was like affirming and he's like celebrating. And then, you know, you were really focused on, okay, and that's great. And what about this gap? Yes. Let's close this gap. So I think that's always had me look at, just be committed to growth, you know, and like, okay, what can I do to close the gap? But another thing I think from you is just like your level of, you have, I think, just this high level of energy and like zest for life. I mean, how would you describe even now when you wake up? I'm curious. How do you think about the day? What are you feeling?
Well, first, I do try. I thank God for the new day, and you know, and for improving on an improvement from the day before, whether it was my attitude, my behavior, whatever it was. But let it be a learning experience today, right? But it's usually it's a checklist. It's like a long list. That's what I wake up with each and every day. It's never. There's never moments. I don't want to call it peace, but quiet. There's not really, and if there is, I don't take the time. It's like it's like Steve's cousin came in a few weeks ago to visit us, and she saw my freestanding bathtub and how lovely it was with a candle and a place for the wine glass and the place for a book or a tablet or something, and all the niceties that that will go with that. And she goes, but how often do you get in there and enjoy it? How often do you really let yourself go and just languor and just relax? And not very often, right? Not very often, because when I do get in there, my mind's still racing, right? My mind is still racing, so I can't seem to quiet my mind.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I remember when I moved back in with you in Redondo Beach when I was broke and I was staying with you, and like I feel like it was every other day I would have a new business idea, and you'd be just as excited about the idea on Monday as you were on Wednesday as you were on Friday, and it was always like a new show idea or a new business, and I love that you were just as excited. And then I look at you yourself and you're an example of this. Because I mean, now you just came back from Atlanta from a voiceover conference. Yeah. You're like studying voiceover. You had your green truffles business, right? Yeah. You started an e-commerce site, right? And you set up the site yourself. Yes, I did found everything. A supplier for the clothes, right? Yeah. And you're working on a children's book, right? Are you still working?
Yeah, and memoir. Yeah, it's going to be a children's series and a memoir, but it's going to be, I don't know about the memoir part because I want to be very honest about it. So it's going to be, what is the other literary term? Not a memoir, but
just fiction.
Oh gosh, it escapes me right now. It's
not an autobiography.
No, it's oh my goodness. Anyway, it's short of a memoir, but you change the genre because it's you sort of want to hide behind it. I can't think of the literary term right now, but anyway, I'm working on those things, and as Steve calls them, idea du jour. You know, he teases me every morning. I'll wake up. Oh, I was thinking, I have another one actually.
Oh, really?
That
Let's
I want. No.
Oh.
This one because
You're keeping it to yourself?
Yeah,
Okay.
I want to write up the business plan and then I'm going to present it to you. I just, you have an idea because I kind of mentioned it to you a while ago with my favorite brand, the Crosette.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
You know.
Oh, like a home goods brand?
Well, yeah,
potentially?
It's
all right, okay.
Swap and trade. But I have I think it's a great idea, but but it's my idea du jour.
I love that.
So yeah, it's I think if we just keep coming up with those, and I know you get that, but why not be enthusiastic about each and every one of them as we wake up, you know? And to me, it's like, you know, something will stick, right? You keep, you know, throwing them out, having these ideas, something will stick and we'll work at it and I'm sure it'll be very successful. And so there's nothing, I don't think it's a flaw at all.
Yeah, and I think that you, even growing up, you exposed us to as many different experiences as possible, whether it was musicals,
Absolutely.
museums,
Yes.
different things.
Sports. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that
Cultural
carries
events.
over to your even like personal life and expression. Like with my birthday, you and Giselle were going to surprise me with something. What were you going to surprise me with? And then I totally shut it down. But
you did. That was too bad. I was so looking forward to that.
Wait, was it be like a strip?
We had it all planned out. We're going to invite just a few of your closest friends and Helen, of course, and we were gonna do pole dancing. I had my wig picked out.
way.
I had a platinum straight
Wait,
wig.
what?
You know.
Did you have heels? Did you have like?
Well, that was coming, and I was just getting ready for this. I was YouTubing and getting my lessons. How am I gonna hang on?
That's another thing. You don't have to do anything. Like you research it, you figure out what.
I do. I think I spend more time, and I do to anything, any little thing that comes my way. I just research it to death. Everything, and you know, and anything too that pertains to you and Giselle, you know, to myself, you know, I research because one thing I just like things to be as credible as possible, and you know, and sometimes we may not be as original as you know as we can be, but you know, we make it our own, and so you can only do that if you research, right? And number one, you know, researching is good in many ways. It shows you how to do things. You have to learn the rules in order to break them and make them your own, right? So
that's good.
Yeah.
Because I always saw you as creating your own thing. One of the things that really stands out is even in your relationship, you're very independent. So I remember you're like, you know, we could live in different homes.
Oh my gosh, that would be, oh yeah. Yeah, his and hers, that's what I called it. As long as his is across town, not next door. Not next door. You're not going to come knocking every hour in the hour or walking in. No, as long as it's across town. Yes, that would be an ideal in even to this day. In yes, I would love that.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And then when you're probably not going to allow me to talk about this, Mommy. When you guys lived in Spain and you were trying to look up the barista, can I say that?
And I was, oh yes.
All right. So this is why I love my mom, you guys, and this is why like we are the same person. So what I love is you create your own rules, and I remember you guys moved to Spain.
Yes.
And you told me how the barista was really beautiful, and you were like trying to like hook Steve up with the barista.
Yeah, well, okay, so
tell me about that. Like, what's the big gig again?
Well, you know, it just came. It's always been that way, I think, from the get-go, and you know, in the relationship. I don't think I'm a very jealous person. I don't think I am about anything, right? Mm-hmm. And so, if the person, but in a case of a relationship, I feel if the person's for you, they're for you, right? And you know, whatever goes, whatever. So yes, we lived up in a beautiful apartment on the 4th floor in San Sebastian, and
it was so beautiful. You had a view of the water, the ocean. It was so beautiful.
Was the ocean to one side, and then the Mount Ulia to the next. It was just awesome. And then the coffee shop downstairs, and so. I mean, that's where he would just hang out a lot, and I saw the flirtation going on.
Oh, you did?
You know, saw the flirtation, but she couldn't figure it out. And I think people,
She's like, what is?
people, I know people. I think to this day, people see us together and they can't figure out. And maybe it's because we're not hanging on. I'm not hanging on, you know, like I'm hanging on tight and you're mine and this and that, you know, so they just can't figure it out. They see a looseness there in the relationship. So, and I think that's, you know, and so I think that gave Dave, the barista, license to like come on to him. And I encouraged him. I said, you know what, go ahead, go, you know, go visit with her. I know she was moving closer to us, and I encouraged him. Now, whether anything happened or I don't know, but I doubt it. But yeah,
I love that though. I mean, because you mentioned earlier you don't see yourself as a jealous person. What I'm hearing in that is you, and I see this in you, you're very grounded and comfortable in who you are. And you know what you have to offer, and you know how to make yourself happy. You know that joy comes from within. I think it shows with all your different areas of interest. You don't rely externally on someone else to make you feel complete or whole. And so you're like, this is me, I'm grounded, I am whole, and I see you as a independently minded whole person with your own set of desires and needs. And if you would like to choose to spend this time with this other person, that doesn't impact my opinion of myself or my wholeness. That if that's additive for you, then it's additive for me and for our unit. That's what I hear when I see that, and I admire that.
It's just because otherwise you're holding a person back from their own happiness, right? And so you have to sort of like give them license to be happy, you know, whether, you know, but I expect you to do the same for me. Allow me to be happy, and whatever that might be. So that's the key to, you know, just being happy. Whatever makes him happy, if my, you know, husband, partner, whatever it needs to see somebody else or go, whatever it is. But my thing is in life is just the consequences, just like you and Giselle growing up. And I feel that I've just ingrained in you, you know, you have to think about consequences. If you're about to do something, if you're you know, flirting with certain actions or whatever it is, you think about what that outcome might be. And if you can live with the outcome, then I say, go ahead. But if you, whatever those consequences are that are happy or they're hurtful to whether it's yourself or somebody else, then you know the answer, don't. Just don't. That is it.
Yeah. So I love that distinction of, again, what I love about you is you've never been prescriptive. You never said, you know, what I do will also work for you, so do what I do. And nor have you said, you know, whatever they do, like do what they do, it works for you. But it is this, I think, this question for you to consider for yourself. Like, does this work for you? Try it on. If it doesn't, no, think through holistically the consequences. I really like, I love that.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you for sharing that.
Oh, sure.
Well, Mommy, I just want to thank you for everything. I mean, I told you this, I think maybe like a month ago or something, that I truly know that I wouldn't be here without you. I really see you as like my OG thought partner and my best friend forever and ever from day one. I've always felt free to tell you everything, and what I love about myself is also what I love about you. So I love myself just how I love you, because like I see myself so much in you. And just thank you for just being like the most amazing example, and you know, giving me the freedom to like become my own person. And I know like all of this is because of you.
Aww.
Yeah, you're just like so incredible. You were really like put here to, you know, guide me in this lifetime.
I don't know about that, because it's I don't know, it's a true partnership. I think we were paired together. It's definitely not just one-sided, not because, you know, I was going to be the person to guide you throughout. I think it's a win-win, definitely, because you've taught me so much as well. You know, you have and corrected me, and you have shown me a different perspective on things. And so I think that, I think it's just very, very complimentary what we have together.
Oh, I love that, how you put it. It's like a partnership. So you know that, I mean, I want kids one day. So I'm curious, we talked a lot about how you are as a parent. I'm curious, how do you think I'm going to be as a mom?
Well, I know you've been praising me a lot about my motherhood and how I am, how I parent and so on, but I really, really feel that you're going to be 1,000 times better than I am, meaning that those kids are going to just, they are going to come blazing into the world, and you talk about the freedom I gave you, and I mean, I see these children, they're going to have so much more. You're going to have every answer to every question. You're going to, guide them and show them, life experiences. And I know they're going to be so good in everything they do. But that's because of you. I think you're going to just allow them to be. You're going to do it even better than I have, with you. So I think that just a few examples as a oh my goodness, you must have been, well, just think at 2.5 years old when you were tying shoelaces, and I'm with you because you love to teach, right? You like to teach, you like to show people how to do things, a better better way. You may find out how to cut corners, but do it in a quality way and sort of way. But at 2.5 years old, when you're tying shoelaces, and we're at a 4th of July party, and this kid who's 9 years old running around with his shoelaces untied, and you just stop him at 2.5. You stopped him in his tracks, and you bent down and you tied his shoelaces together, and his parents are looking like, how old is she? And you're showing this kid how to tie his own shoelaces. It was homework time, and we had TJ, your cousin, overnight, and it was homework time, and you're at the kitchen counter doing homework, and you're diligently, like always, doing your homework, right? And TJ, of course, he wants to go play. He doesn't want to do homework. And I'm like, TJ, you've got to go do homework. And he's like, I don't have to do homework. I don't have to do homework. I want to be Superman. I don't want to go to school. I want to be Superman. And you just got off the counter very quietly, very calmly, and you went to him, you say, TJ, Superman has to know about geography, and Superman has to know math, because he needs to know how many times to go around the world to get to the people he's going to rescue. Superman has to go to school. He needs to know these things. And so I was stunned. I didn't know what to say, because you shamed me, right? You took the high road. You showed him how and why he needed to do his homework, because we need a smart Superman, right? And so being, those are just a couple of examples. And the time when you got that B+ you talked about earlier, the reason you got it, because I went to the teacher. I went to the teacher. I mean, like I did. They were tired of seeing me. I was in there. I would say, look, it's not like I'm a bored house mom with nothing to do. I pay attention to what my child's telling me every day after school, because I question every single thing. Every single day I question. So I want to make sure that she's paired nicely, with the right teacher. She's in the right class that's stimulating to her. And then when I went in and I found out the reason you got that B+ was because you would just get up. And it's not because you were doing poor work. It's because you were getting up, and in the teacher's mind, you were being disruptive. You would get up and go help the other students how to do their work.
Really?
Yeah, and you would just, and that's what you would do. You would just help the other students, right? And so you've always been that kind of person who would edify others. Little did I know, from wanting to be a doctor, maybe an attorney, and then maybe not so much as a doctor, but a scientist, when you got accepted into that Stanford scholarship program for that summer to learn about genetics, at the Genome Center, right? And so from And the reason you said you changed, from wanting to be a doctor, and wanting to be a scientist because you can do more for humanity, right? For the humanity as a whole, not just the patient that would come in to see you, every day, but yeah, humanity as a whole. And I thought that was just very in-depth of you, that you came to that at just 12 years old. About 13, 14 years old, you came to that realization. So I think you're going to be a terrific mother. I can't wait to see it. And so, yeah, I just can't wait to see it, whether it's boy or girl or both. You're going to be a terrific mother.
Or we'll let them determine their own gender. You know what I'm saying?
That's
We're
true.
Not gonna put no labels.
That's true.
Let them do their thing.
Them.
You know what I'm saying? Yes. Thank you, Mommy. Thank you. Oh, well, thank you. I just want to thank you for being on. This is so special to have you on the show, to share you with the world, because I've been able to experience you. Giselle, who's right off camera right there, my little sister, she's a grown-ass woman, but younger sister, having her here. But we've been able to experience you, for the last decades, and this was so special to bring you on, to have the world also experience you, and have a glimpse into how amazing you are. So thank you for being on the show, and for, I just love you. I love you since 3000.
And I love you too, since 3000. Love you,
Thanks,
Dan.
Mommy. Listen, sometimes life be lifing, and we do not know what's coming down that road next. Well, that's what happened to me in 2016 when I was unexpectedly laid off from my job. And I was 6 figures in student loan debt. I had no savings, and I didn't know what was gonna happen next. Now, luckily, I had this little voice inside of me at that time that I couldn't ignore, and it was telling me to take the leap. It was saying, use this as your opportunity to build your business. Use this as your opportunity to create your dream life. And so I believe that life happens for us, not to us. And that nudge in my spirit, I should listen to it. Luckily, I did. Fast forward to today, I have a business that's made over $20 million, and I've helped over 10,000 people create their online businesses and their dream lives. So do you want to learn how to turn your story into an online product and launch in 30 days? Head on over to coursefromscratch.com/since3000. I want you to join us on this journey so you can listen to that little voice inside of you too. So go now, do yourself a favor, coursefromscratch.com/since3000.